Welcome back to another episode of the Kick and Cover podcast. Today we have Coach Brock Ballweber with us. He is the special teams coordinator at Legacy High School in Bismarck, North Dakota. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing all right. As I said before we came on, I'm a little tired, but getting this state clinic done and all this, and by the time this airs, that'll be long over, thankfully. And but yeah, the kind of grind of doing this stuff, the state clinic, teaching, family, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's the off season, Coach.
Yeah, there's no such thing, Coach.
That's right.
Actually, no. That month after the season, that's your off season. So
yeah,
you get a month.
A little breather.
Yeah. So before we get started, we mean you talk a little bit off air about, but for those who don't know you, how did you end up at Legacy? What's your kind of background?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm in Bismarck, North Dakota. It's where I was born, raised, grew up here. Played high school ball here. Played college ball here at a small D2. Got my intro to coaching actually in Wyoming, is where I cut my teeth in Gillette. Coached running backs down there. Very successful program at the top. You know, Wyoming, like North Dakota, is a pretty rural state, but the biggest high school, it was a big high school down there in Gillette. There's about 2,000 kids in the high school. Really fell in love with coaching down there. Worked with a lot of really good people. And then when I came up here, it was a really nice opportunity. The guy who is our head coach now was one of the position coaches at the college I went to. And so I came up here and joined him. And in 2013, we built this thing along with a few other guys that are still on staff from the ground up. So we started in 2013 with just freshmen. We've got 5 varsity seasons under our belt. And we still... Unfortunately, we're still waiting for our first playoff win in school history. We've had plenty of successes. We've had a lot of kids go on to play college ball. We had our first Division I kid get signed in January. But, slowly but surely we're building this thing, and it's been fun.
Right, that takes time, Coach. That doesn't happen overnight. And like I said, anytime you take on a project like that can be daunting. But it's set. It takes a while to build. Like I said, the old ad, Rome wasn't built in a day. All that lovely stuff. So we kind of talked and we kind of went back, forced some ideas on kickoff, PAT, field goal, and I think we kind of settled on kind of some of the formation and background stuff you guys do. Do you want to kind of explain kind of what you guys do and kind of what makes you guys different before we get into the film and all that? So.
Yeah, for sure. And I started doing this, we call them pods, and there's 4 pods in a fairly unique formation before we start. It's another little wrinkle, something for opponents to prepare for or not prepare for, which we would prefer. And it's just a little wrinkle that can catch teams off guard, and it can lead to some cheap points. 2's more than 1. So just a little wrinkle that we like to put in, and we'll shift from our pods into our regular PAT formation, and we'll still run fakes out of the traditional PAT set as well. Again, just trying to get some cheap ones when we can.
Okay. Like I said, I think I have a buddy that has like a whole Rolodex of those just for a prep standpoint. If you watched episode 1, that he talked a little bit about that. But yeah, I had to prep for that. God, what was it? Last week of the season. So we had a team that did it. That was their base. They just run fake 90% of the time. I think it gives you an interesting dynamic if you can run it well. Where did you like I said before we get into the film and stuff? Where did you go to research and develop that? Is that something you just kind of I've seen that and I want to kind of dig more into this? How did you kind of evolve into that?
So that's a really good question. There's probably a 2-part answer to that. You can probably see the Mizzou pennant behind me. That's where I got my master's, but. Full disclosure, I'm an Oregon Duck fan. And, of course, back when Chip Kelly and the Ducks were kind of in their heyday, in their prime, they would come out, and most games after their first score, they would go for two. They'd always do it out of a very creative set, untraditional formations, motions, snaps going different directions. And so that's where I really, I approached my head coach, of course, and I said, I think we should do some of these things. I think it's something fun for the kids to get engaged in. High school football has to be fun. It's a game. And so that's why we do it. That's why we coach. That's why we played when we were kids, because it was fun to do. And so this was just one of those dynamics where it was enjoyable for the kids, and got some input from them as well. And just a fun little way to seize momentum. If you score first on a team, especially if you do it quickly, there's a psychological factor of 8-0 that's a little different than 7-0. It can cause your opponent to chase points. Unfortunately, we've been in a situation too, and this really only happened once to us, where we failed to convert, and then we had to chase points too, which is sort of the when you gamble or when you're aggressive, it can nip you sometimes too, right? But more often than not, we're certainly more successful than we're unsuccessful with it.
Now, how much has this system morphed over the past couple of years for you guys?
Yeah, great question. So we've been pretty consistent over the last 3 years. After the first 2 years, we added a couple wrinkles here and there. We changed the alignment of our wings, and that's still something that I'm trying to mess with a little bit too. But for the most part, it stayed pretty consistent. We've added some motions and things. I don't have any clips of our motions in here. But I guess from a morphing standpoint, really the only thing we've added are some motions.
Okay.
So this is, again, what we call our pods. Can you see my cursor if I'm circling?
Got everything, Coach.
Great. So this one to the left, this is called pod 1. Obviously, we've got our guard tackle here, who are aligned like they would be next to each other in a traditional PAT set, but they are set out on the hash. We've got who actually becomes our wing here, usually a bigger body wide receiver or a running back type body. And then set in behind him, we've got the guy who will become our end in our traditional PAT formation. And he's usually a tight end body with an eligible number there. And then we align our kicker sort of in a fullback spot here. This middle one is called pod 2. And we've got our long snapper here marked with a C. We've got our kicker with a K. And then I put Q here. That's our holder. All right, so we've got our holder, which is usually a backup quarterback. I think most high schools will have a backup quarterback or a skilled kid. We've had either a backup quarterback or our free safety, who is a really good baseball player as well. Someone who's used to handling the football right here. So that's pod 2. Right here, you've got pod 3. Again, you got your guard tackle here set just outside the hash. And then another fullback tight end type body here. This is pod 3. And then we've got out here this lone receiver who's on the line of scrimmage. We consider him pod 4. And again, he's usually a bigger body, goal line, taller set type of receiver over there. And so we've got the option to direct snap here to this player. It'd be a sideline call. We'd call 1. And it'd be a direct snap from our center to this player. We've got 2. And if we call 2, it's just a direct snap here to the quarterback. And he's looking to run. And our kicker, who, as you might guess, probably isn't a great blocker, he'll kind of whiff on a block if there's a player to block that's aligned above this pod 2. and he'll sort of whiff and he'll curl up here for a little pop pass option. Over here is 3, right? If you call 3, again, that's a direct snap. And of course, with this long snapper, he needs to be a decently skilled football player that can snap directionally without a snap infraction. And again, as you might imagine, that's something we practice plenty in order to execute that. And then out here, we've got our pod 4 with this lone receiver. If we call 4, it's essentially an RPO to the pylon for our holder or quarterback. He's rolling out here. He's attacking the pylon. And at the same time, our wide receiver out here is running the blaze out. He's selling the post, and then he's slamming on the brakes, and he's running the back line of the end zone to that back pylon. In the meanwhile, the quarterback's on a foot race to the front pylon there, taking his options, trying to score 2 points. So,
how many different looks do you get from opposing schools for this, or is it usually pretty universal at this point?
So at this point, we're getting pretty universal looks, and that's why we're starting to incorporate some motions to try to gain some numbers advantages. Early on, we got by far the easiest one, Coach, is you might imagine, is 2, right? Direct snap it for a holder, and he runs in for a cheap 2 points. And so a lot of times, like if we are now that we've got film going back a couple years, when we are going through this during the week of practice, when we touch on this on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on our week, we essentially will have our scout team line up, and I'd call it man-to-man, okay? Put 4 guys over pod 1, 3 over 2, 3 over 3, and then go man-to-man on the receiver out there. But it's remained pretty consistent. I think teams like to try to just go man-to-man, but if they're sleepy or if they miss a line, again, this is a special teams unit, and in high school football, I think some programs naturally will spend more time on special teams than others, and we have some opponents that do a really good job, and we realize that we might have to be a little more what I would call vanilla during that week, because they do prepare well for it, but we have some programs that we feel traditionally that we can take advantage of and steal some points on. And so this is after we've come in from we'll get the sideline and we'll get the end zone cut. This is something we'll call from the sideline. This is me here, and I'll give this call from the sideline. In addition to those pod fakes, we will also do sort of your I don't know if you want to call it your Charlie Brown type play where the holder is going to pull it from the kicker, and then we'll make it a race to the pylon. Going either to this right pylon, offensive right, or the offensive left pylon. In this one, in our week of prep studying film, we saw this team, this opponent. This is from the 2019 season. This opponent traditionally would rush from our left. And so this is the first touchdown of the game. This is, what is this, play 7? So we got our kickoff. We recovered an onside kick to start this game. And so 4 plays later or 5 plays later, we scored. We were ready to have a good day. So I'll roll this here. We've just come in from our pods formation. I have our wings facing perpendicular to our ends. Again, this is something I think I want to toy with, but what it does allow us to do is on these kinds of fakes, you'll see our wing. I teach them to step with this back foot and keep this front foot in concrete to make a seal here with the end. But when he does his step out, he can sort of show that. And then from there, he's running about a yard or two deep here into the end zone off of the fake. So we're pulling it there, racing to the pylon, get that in the way a little bit. So there you go. You can see it again. Here's the end zone view. Again, something you kind of study demeanor of kids too. You can kind of tell, hate to pick on a kid, of course, but this young man is not really engaged or ready to play this snap. Sometimes we're talking, we all coach high school football. It's 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. They're not necessarily engaged. Again, we had just scored off of the fifth play from scrimmage. And so, to kind of take advantage of some nap time here as well. Again, leading up to that week, it's a hard rush from our left. And so they're coming hard. We see that little fake. Let our athletes work in space a little bit. This one starts a little late. You can see our pods here. I know the next clip has the sound on, so I apologize for that. Our camera guy had the sound on our end zone clip. But you can see here we're in our pod look. We've got 2 over 3 in the middle pod. This was a few years back. I think this was in 2017. And we had a really good backup quarterback here, a very physical football player. He's throwing javelin. He's a D1 javelin thrower now. Big, strong kid. And we just snapped the ball to him, and he weighed about 220 pounds as a junior in high school. So just snapped the ball to him. Again, we've got sound here. I apologize for that. They're playing the school song. But you can see here, we've got 3, they've got 2, right? And so we feel really good about that when we've got a numbers advantage. And again, this is me calling it from the sideline, just yelling 2 at them. And it's pretty easy 2 points. I was talking about that whiff block earlier. This is our kicker. This was our kicker that year. Another great athlete. We've been blessed with some really good athletes here. He was an all-state wide receiver. He was our kicker. And now he's a Division I high jumper. So we have some pretty good players here. And he's gonna whiff on this, but it's enough to hold this player here, not really know. And we get a walk-in 2 points there. Here's another look in our pods. Again, you've got a team sort of scrambling here. We had some opportunities in pods here, but again, from the week of scouting, I felt better about, once again, seeing a heavy rush from our left. You can see them just by demeanor. You can kind of see the forward lean here from these players, and not really a lean from these players way out here. And so, again, we're going to call the swing through and the race to our left pylon here to steal some points. We've got that player there running the about 2 yards deep into the end zone, and just enough to hold that player who could guard against the fake. And again, this player here, the holder, he's got an option to throw that football. I teach him to keep it as long as he can until someone forces him to throw the ball. Again, let athletes be athletes in space. Pretty easy 2 points. This is one from this year. we got called for a penalty on this, and this is really my fault as a coach. We got called for an illegal procedure penalty here. Our holder was in motion. So I'm calling the play from the sideline, right? I'm yelling out 3. Okay, we're going to attack pod 3 right here. We've got 3 over 2. I'm determining that this player here is out of alignment, and he's not going to be able to make this play. We've got 2 on 2 here, and we've got a good, strong athlete here who's ready to score. But this player is moving toward the line of scrimmage as he's calling out the play, as he's calling out 3, and our snapper here snaps it, and we're called for an illegal procedure. So you got some failures too. I'm not too proud to not put these in here either, but you get a good look at what 3 looks like.
Now, in terms of that snap, Coach, how much practice does that take for your snappers?
So that's an everyday pre-practice,
okay,
Coach. That's so most of your long snappers are your short snappers as well. So they're working with the punters pre-practice, but then they're also working on these things pre-practice as well. And then of course each week we will practice all of these plays. We'll practice 1, 2, 3, and 4 every week of the season. But to answer your question directly, that's a pre-practice deal each day. And our kids are wondering, well, what the heck's going on? But again, we get a pretty good look here. We didn't even do a great job. This player here in black, he's a good football player. He destroys this block here from one of our better guards in our program, unfortunately. But it was just enough for us to get in. This 24 does a really nice job getting rid of a potential block, but it's just too late based on their alignment to stop us. Here's another one. Again, this one's from when we kind of first started doing it. You can see they got 5 over 4 here, and they're sort of misaligned. They don't really know what to do. This was a program that we felt maybe wasn't going to prepare well for us. We also, our kicker was injured for this game, so we thought, hey, what a nice opportunity for us to employ these different fakes. So we'll get a couple clips from this game. We were fortunate enough to score quite a few points in this one. You can see the alignment here. These 2 players, again, we got a numbers advantage. We also have a really nice leverage advantage. They're already in the end zone. They're not crowding the ball in any way. So we get a nice little walk-in on this one here. All right, pretty easy score for us there. Again, you can see from the end zone shot here, we got R3 on there 2. Pretty easy. One thing we also teach that I didn't mention before, and you'll see it coming up. We're going to run 4 here, so we're gonna race to the pylon on this one. On any odd numbered pod play, so you're 1, you're 3, 11 or 13 is what we call it if we incorporate motion. Our linemen know that they can go downfield, but because both 2 and 4 have those pass options to it, our linemen know that, again, our center, guard, and tackle, they need to know that you can't go downfield on the even numbered plays. Again, this is it's a big, strong kid. He's going to race to the pylon, and he sneaks it in there. This is a good look at it. They adjusted, right? So earlier in the game, we had scored on 2. Now they put 4 over our 3. giving us an advantage somewhere else, and it was over to our right, racing to the pylon here. So these kids too, they are offensive linemen. Most every program in the country will have a sprint out or a rollout package, and that's essentially the blocking scheme that they are incorporating here. Not a great job keeping our feet here, but again, it's enough to get us into the corner there. Now, this is another one where we're in pods, and we felt that this opponent was coming from our right rather than our left. We felt that they were going to come from this side, and so we're going to attack pressure with pressure. And we're going to run to the pylon on that side. Again, it puts this player in conflict. Am I going to attack the ball carrier, or am I going to cover this wing who's running in the end zone? Again, teach him, the ball carrier, to keep the ball until he feels as though he cannot score. He sees an opening, good aggressive football player here. He's a free safety for us, good baseball player, and he finishes the run aggressively into the end zone. We got the end zone shot. Again, just looking at demeanor. We've got some forward lean here. We've got some players sort of back on their heels on this side. So we're going to attack pressure with pressure. Finish in the end zone. Great finish. And then those are some of those kickoff clips, Coach.
Yeah. Well, that's some good stuff, Coach. I got a couple more questions before we wrap up. Yeah. So, like I said, you've obviously you're adding motion. Have you considered any other? Formation wise, anything else? Maybe to make the because I've like nice thing about doing this podcast. I've seen a variety of these, either on screen or off screen. Like I know the team we played, they put all 5 linemen to one side and took the Z off so they could make the long snapper eligible.
Yep.
So, short snapper.
We actually.
So yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted you there.
Good.
Yeah, sort of your more traditional swinging gate type look. We have done that. We practiced it a couple times. We tried it. So our first game of the season, and this was a lot of humble pie for me. Our first game of the season during the pandemic here was on national TV, right? So Legacy High School, we played Century High School, which is where I went to high school, but it's also where Carson Wentz, the embattled quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, right? That's where he went to high school too. And so, we got to play on national television. It was great. And we actually tried that, after our first score. You had that sort of traditional swinging gate look. And we did not succeed on that attempt, but it's definitely something that we looked at. I called for the ball to be snapped into the swinging gate. In hindsight, if we were going to fake it, and in my conversation with the head coach, we decided that after our first score, we're gonna do this. And in hindsight, we should have had the option. Should have called 4. Right, to have our quarterback sort of roll out, and would they have noticed that our long snapper, who was also one of our running backs in that game, would they have noticed that he was eligible? I don't know. They're a very well coached team, but absolutely, that's something that we're going to toy with, and we'll probably start to incorporate more as teams get more and more used to what we do in that pods look.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then my last question is, how much do you guys mess with this in terms of when you're going to attempt a field goal? Do you mess with this at all during that, or is this just a PAT thing for you guys?
Yeah, great question. This is just a PAT thing for us. We've talked a little bit about whether this would be something we'd try on a field goal attempt. Of course, those fakes that you see, where sort of the Charlie Brown swing through thing. That's of course something we have at our disposal when we're kicking a field goal, right out of that traditional field goal PAT formation there. But no, we've not shown that on field goal attempts.
Okay. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on and talking some special teams with me.
Coach, thanks for having me.
No problem,
this is
Coach.
Great.
No problem at all. Coaches that are still listening or watching, his contact information will be below. Follow him on Twitter, DM him. Coach will get back to you. Coach will talk some special teams, get some kickoff stuff he can talk to you about as well. So don't hesitate to follow him and reach out to him. As always, like and subscribe. Helps people find not only this video, but the channel and everything else. For those who haven't seen stuff yet, it helps everything keep going. And then I think I have at least one, after Coach here, I think I have at least one more scheduled Kick and Cover podcast for this off season. And then we'll kind of go from there. So, Coach, thank you again. And then that was another episode of the Kick and Cover podcast.
Okay, and just to add on to that, Coach, I know way less than I need to learn. So I love sharing ideas. I love doing things that are sort of out of the ordinary or non-traditional. It makes it engaging for me. It makes it engaging for your players. And, that's what it's all about. So, yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks again, Coach.